start. I'm going to just do some brief introductions so that we have more time to get into the meat of the issues. So joining us today, I'll start on the end. State Senator Kyle Walker, who represents Senate District 31, which includes parts of Hamilton and Marion counties, including all of Fishers and part of Lawrence. Senator Walker serves on the Corrections and Criminal Law Committee, Education and Career Development, and Insurance and Financial Institution Committees. Next, we have State Representative Chuck Goodrich, who represents House District 29, which includes a portion of Hamilton County, including all of Noblesville. Representative Goodrich serves on Education, Employment, Labor, and Pensions, and the Ways and Means Committee. Insert budget requests. We have Senator Fady Qaddoura, representing Senate District 30, which includes parts of Hamilton and Marion County. Senator Qaddoura serves on Appropriations, Education and Career Development, Family and Children Services, Pensions and Labor, School Funding Subcommittee, and Tax and Fiscal Policy Committee. That's a lot of committees, Senator Qaddoura. And then next to me, Representative Mike Karickhoff, who represents House District 30, which includes portions of Howard and Grant counties, including most of Kokomo. Representative Karickhoff serves on Natural Resources, Rules and Legislative Procedures, and Government and Regulatory Reform, and he also, I know, was at our conference last year. So thank you for being here again this year. So I'm gonna dive in with a couple of questions. These are all elected officials who we know have proposed legislation or are working on legislation that impacts the industry. So we want to talk to them a little bit about that, and then if we have time, we'll open it up to more questions. So I'm going to start with Representative Goodrich. So the tech industry, first up, the tech industry continues to struggle with talent shortages to fill the jobs across the state. And even as we want to attract more jobs, we've got to create the pipeline for people to fill those jobs. So you serve on the Education Committee and have worked on some apprenticeship policy, maybe past, present, future. So one of the policy priorities that we talked about that we're focusing on next year is trying to figure out if there are ways for the state to incentivize apprenticeships, internships, ways that we can kind of work with schools to get folks into the industry and introduce them to the jobs that they may not even know exist. So if you would share with us, I guess, a little bit on your work in that space and any thoughts that you may have.
Well, thanks very much for having me. I would say that I came down to the State House and ran for office because of workforce development, and so I believe there's probably not a person in this room that either doesn't need employees or hasn't heard that we don't have enough teachers, police officers, firemen, electricians. And so this apprenticeship thing is a big deal. And so what I thought as I listened to that question was talk a little bit about what's going on in Hamilton County and in my district. And maybe that'll help kind of stem some conversation for you guys, because there's no question, absolutely, you have to develop a technology apprenticeship. So currently in Hamilton County, we have apprenticeship on nursing. We're just started an apprenticeship on teaching. And of course, we already have apprenticeships on trades, which has been a while. So I run and own Gaylor Electric. And of course, my pipeline is one of the most critical things to us as a company. And so we've spent a lot of time working on that issue even before I came to the State House. And so here's how it kind of works. I mean, we hear all the time that there are kids that are want to go to college, and there's kids that want to have lifelong learning opportunity. There are kids that may not fit in that model. And so for the state, we've all worked continuously to try to make sure a model works for each and every Hoosier kid or young adult that we have. And so what happens in Hamilton County at this youth apprenticeship, and why I think it can be successful in the tech industry, is kids actually leave high school during the day, a couple days or 3 days a week, and they actually go to a career center. And I believe the most effective and efficient career center is a triple P, a private-public partnership where we have government, schools, and both the same, and private business together, where in fact the career centers ran by a private institution, because they're the folks that will keep that technology up to date and what employers need. And so these young folks actually leave high school. They learn the construction trades from electrical to HVAC to concrete. And I would just tell you this, after 2 years, they have somewhere between 6 and 12 certifications, depending how robust they are as a student. And I can tell you, you guys are the masters of certifications. And so I can imagine if you had a technology apprenticeship, all the certifications that our kids could have coming out of school. The key is the relationship between this public school or the private school or a lot of homeschoolers and the actual career center, and building that relationship, because once a kid starts in one of those apprenticeships, it's amazing how well they perform at STEM and other models. I mean, it incentivizes them. They're applying their education every day, and it is absolutely amazing to watch how their grades improve. So here's the end result with the apprenticeship for the craft. 58 kids in the Hamilton County Career Center in Fishers. 58 kids got a job when they graduated at 18 years old, and everyone was placed in a construction company. And so when you look at that and you think about how that works technology-wise, it's a perfect pipeline for you. And I absolutely agree that you have to have this apprenticeship. So we're going to work on that, incentivizing apprenticeships this year in '23.
Awesome, thank you. And I don't know if Senator Rotz is still here, but I know he's worked in that space too, and in the back. So may have a Senate sponsor as well, but someone who's been interested in helping us in that space too. Okay, Representative Karickhoff, I'm going to go to you next. So
Okay.
You've actually authored several pieces of legislation that have caught our attention over the last few years, including one on cybersecurity. And we talked about, the rise in cyber attacks for local government, state government, private business is a concern for a lot of people. We have folks in the cybersecurity space here running companies. Talk to us a little bit about some of the work that you've done in that space, and any other, I guess, legislation, open mic, that you want to talk about that you think may impact the industry.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here. The bill I authored is House Bill 1169, and it was purely for selfish reasons. Our public library in Howard County had an attack, and they got locked out of their own system for several days, and were advised they would be better served to pay the ransom to get their system unlocked than it would be to try to find a way in the back door and lock their system back down. So the insurance company ponied up the money, and they got back on their system and hardened their security measures. And as I spoke to people at the Association of Indiana Counties, AIC, and AIM, Accelerating Indiana Municipalities, found out this was going on all across the state, and that they had talked to some folks at Purdue about trying to find a way to share information with different political subdivisions so they could be on the lookout for this sort of bad actor. And it was my good fortune to partner with both AIM and AIC, and we have Greg Lubstein here from the Indiana Office of Information Technology, who was really key in drafting the language. We had a lot of participation from higher ed, local units of government, as we crafted a bill that didn't have a fiscal. It allowed political subdivisions to basically assign a person to be their cybersecurity guru that would make reports to the state, and the state would check it out, and if they needed to, they would share that information with every other political subdivision. I describe it as an online neighborhood watch. If somebody breaks into one house, the likelihood that a neighbor's house is going to be broke into is pretty good. So what we attempted to do was to set up a network, and in short order, I think we've had great success. So we've had 149 unique political subdivisions have submitted incident reports. And, you think about it across the state, that's not a lot, but five of those reports were significant that would have affected multiple political subdivisions, that we're confident that we stopped a bad actor from basically interrupting our local units of government's ability to pay bills, to track resources, to get bills out, to do the things they have to do. We are very careful to not include the private sector. We didn't want to have an unfunded mandate on anybody, but we have had interest from private businesses about, hey, how can we do this? How can we? And I had a really great conversation with some gentlemen at lunch today who are in this space, both training people through apprenticeship programs that they hired to go to work in their companies, and just, you know, libraries, schools, townships, clerks, K-12 schools, the cities, towns. There's so many opportunities for bad actors to cause mischief, cause harm. If you think about it, the city of Indianapolis or the city of Fort Wayne, they have the resources. But Scott County or Union County or some very small political, they don't even know where to go buy cybersecurity stuff. They don't have the first idea. So the second part of the bill was to help those local political subdivisions find vendors that were credible, reputable. We didn't tell them who to do business with, but we kind of gave reference checks for vendors. So the Office of Information Technology went on the road, traveled across the state to meet with elected officials, bureaucrats at every level of government to get the word out that you can participate in this program, it's good, and it's going to have success. And every report, I know I attended the one in Howard County, every report I've heard is that people were welcoming, open-minded, and see the value in this. I guess the best way I would describe it, have you heard the term cooperation? Cooperation. Not cooperation, not competition, but cooperation. Where, you know, you're still competing with one another, but you have to share information with your competitor so the common good doesn't get affected. So that was kind of the first bill I passed. I know we've had some discussions about how we'll use ILITE perhaps in the future. I know it's strictly being used by higher ed, but I've had some discussions with Katie Jenner and Chris Lowry and Tracy Barnes from the Office of Information Technology about how we might be able to use ILITE a little differently. Don't know if that'll have any legislation moving forward on that. And then we'll let some of these other guys talk, but I would like to share a little bit about the EV Commission and the work that we've been doing this past year since we adopted the EV Commission, and it's related to technology.
Well, let's just dig into it for a second, because obviously that is an innovative space. Indiana and Kokomo have a rich history in the automotive industry, and as part of our PLACE committee, kind of fostering the growth for electric vehicles is one of the things that we are interested in. So go ahead and share a minute your work in the EV space.
So it was my good fortune to offer a bill, and it was purely by coincidence. The Tuesday after the Super Bowl, I got to give my floor presentation on the EV Commission. It came out of committee unanimously, wide bipartisan support. And if you'll recall, the Super Bowl had an advertisement, quite a few advertisements about EV. And comedian's name slips my mind right now, but he was talking about how EV's here and Sweden's going to be all EV, and if they're going to do it in Sweden, we're going to do it. And it was quite funny. We got the bill out of the House unanimously, passed the Senate unanimously. The Commission studies 8 areas. We evaluate the inventory of existing electric vehicle products and facilities production capabilities. We evaluate the workforce, both skilled and non-skilled. We evaluate opportunities for training. We identify existing manufacturing competencies within traditional automotive industry and determine how these competencies can be leveraged to increase use in the EV space. We identify and evaluate opportunities for growth within the EV industry itself, document results from our inventories, and we identify opportunities for research and development within the EV industry. So the committee has met, oh golly, probably 11 times. It's one of the most involved, active summer study committees I've ever been on. Actually, the commission has a 5-year charge. We're just getting the information assembled now. We have all 4 of the major automobile manufacturers, representatives from both parties in both chambers. The Battery Innovation Center, Ben Reitzman's involved. Energy Systems Network, Paul Mitchell's involved. There's a lot of excitement about what's going on with EV. The announcement about Kokomo being chosen as a site for Samsung and Stellantis to not just build batteries, but build cells. As I understand it, there's less than a half a dozen factories in the world that actually manufacture the cells, and that's huge. And then there's some discussion about another, GM has, I just read in the IBJ, GM's looking at a potential battery site. So just the fact that we have expressed an interest in EV and training our workforce and transitioning our workforce and inventorying what we have has sparked a lot of excitement and interest from folks in the industry. Our meetings are well attended from folks outside. We've done everything online, so there'll be anywhere from 20 to 30 people. Just so many great questions, things you don't even think about being related to the EV industry that we've learned about. I know it certainly opened my eyes a lot. So it's probably best, Q&A kind of thing to flush out. I see Adam from the state chambers here. I mean, I know he's actively engaged in watching what we do. And look, we're a manufacturing state. We can't afford to lose these jobs. Our collective future depends on the ability to preserve and protect and even expand these jobs moving forward. So, I come from Kokomo. It's a great town. There's a lot of skepticism about EV. I mean, you go in the factories and they build transmissions. But they also have seen how quickly, copper line phones disappeared. Not very many people got a hardline phone in their house. Everybody's got their pocket phone, and just to watch that transition happen in less than 2 decades. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility now that, routinely cars go 300 miles on a charge. They are getting more and more efficient batteries. You see more and more alternative fuel sources being produced, not to lower energy costs, but to stop the growth in energy costs. So it's been exciting.
Awesome. Thank you. We look forward to working with you more on that, too. Senator Walker, you represent the city of Fishers, which has become a real tech hub in the state. We have the mayor come in to speak to us at 3 o'clock. But Indiana, actually, as a state, ranks very low in entrepreneurship, 42 out of 50 on the Kauffman Entrepreneurial Index. So what are some things that the state can do to not only support the activity in Fishers and your district, but across the state we have folks from all kinds of communities, and when we've done our road show a little bit, that comes up a lot. How do we help grow something like that in other places?
Yeah, I mean, we clearly need to do a better job in the state. I mean, I'm incredibly proud to represent an area of Fishers that has really cultivated an environment and a culture of entrepreneurship and innovation and embracing, tech companies and all of the sort of surrounding culture there. And it's in no small part, actually in very large part, to the leadership and vision of Mayor Scott Fadness and a lot of local business leaders, many of whom are here today. And they've created spaces like Launch Fishers or the Indiana IoT Lab that really create an opportunity and an environment and a space for folks that may just have a concept, or maybe they're just starting their business that's in some sort of an innovation and tech arena and entrepreneurship. And again, those are all kind of 3 distinctly different categories, but certainly, play together. And I think we can do a better job throughout the state. I think there's an opportunity for more regional tech and innovation hubs. Certainly an opportunity for more co-working type spaces, for collaboration of folks in the tech and entrepreneurship spaces. High-speed broadband is, I think, something that is a barrier for that in many places throughout the state. So we have to continue, and I know we talked a little bit about that, earlier today, but we have to continue to invest in that and make sure that that access is available to everyone in the state. And then I think, maintaining and continuing to improve our tax and regulatory environment to ensure that, that we are a place that's attractive for people to start a business and to grow their business, and simply make sure that we don't have policies that are hostile to innovation, right? So I think all those things are very important to making an environment that is attractive for entrepreneurs to want to start here or to grow here and stay here.
So a couple little things. The IoT lab, which you helped secure funding for, and actually has reach across the state, right? So the goal is for that program to develop and reach into other communities.
Yeah, so in our previous budget cycle, I helped secure $1 million for the Indiana IoT lab that's used for programming and growth throughout the state. And so, that is their charge, is to find these communities that have this interest and want to help start building a culture like what Fishers has, and we do have some other pockets throughout the state. So, the funding for groups like that is really important. And I also think that funding for groups like Elevate Ventures or the Next Level Fund, expansion of the VCI tax credit. I mean, I think many of us voted to expand that from 20 to 25% last year, but I think there's more room on that side also, so that we can have that critical funding that is available as entrepreneurs, again, go from concept to really, starting up a business.
Thank you. I want to put in a note I should have mentioned during our legislative successes. One of the things that we also did last session was we were successful in getting language added to add 2 appointees to the Next Level Fund board, one appointed by the Speaker of the House and one appointed by the Senate President Pro Tem. David Becker is the newly appointed member of the Next Level Fund board, appointed by the Speaker of the House. And then I think Steve Sorrell was here earlier, and I'm not sure if he's here right now, but Steve was appointed by Senate President Pro Tem Rod Bray. So as far as Next Level Fund goes, which we've talked about in other sessions, now that we have kind of 2 folks from not necessarily the industry, but potentially the industry, but with an investment eye, I think is a really good thing for the growth of that program too. So, Senator Qaddoura, thank you for being here. So you have authored legislation. We talked a lot about talent, and we will always talk about talent. That problem will probably never go away, but we want to keep improving. So you've authored legislation to help attract talent to the state and keep talent here. We have great colleges. Folks were talking about this earlier this morning, and then they go to the coasts, and it seems like at some level there's incentive for them to go to the coasts as opposed to staying here. They get encouraged away to other places. What are some of the things that you've worked on or plan to try to work on to help us attract and retain the talent and college graduates that we have here?
Well, I appreciate you, and thank you for having me here. I'm honored to be with you. Just a side note, I'm honored as a former city controller. I invested and played a small role in financing this building and 16 Tech. So I'm honored to see the progress of the public-private partnership that led to these incentives or government incentives to help work on these issues. And I see that CICP's office is upstairs. David Johnson and his team were incredible in working with them over the years, and I appreciate them for that. And then a second side note is that my first 2 degrees are in computer science. So I have passion for technology and innovation, and I currently serve in the innovation space as well. To address the talent issue, I think it's critical to look at the alignment between different systems. The workforce system, the educational system, and the culture and people system. So if there's a misalignment between people, technology, and culture, then we will have an issue with attracting talent in the state of Indiana. You know, the future of the world, the future of the United States, the future of Indiana, as it relates to innovation and disruption, revolves around artificial intelligence and data analytics and cybersecurity and automation and all of these, advanced manufacturing, advanced research. To attract talent, the state has to be ready, one, culturally, to attract people to say, I want to live in Indiana. So I will not expand on this, but all kinds of other issues from housing to childcare to all types of issues will be critical to attract the next generation of talent to Indiana. There's the issue of retaining talent, and that's another problem or another challenge for the state. We have world-class universities. I've been at several events when a group of high schoolers of 10, 15, 20 would be in attendance, and I would ask the question, how many of you plan on graduating from high school? And almost every single one of them would raise their hands. And then my follow-up question, how many of you plan on staying in Indiana? And I was shocked in several instances that not a single hand was raised in those settings saying, I'm staying in Indiana. So we explore why. Why is it that folks don't want to live in Indiana? I won't speak about the culture or the people investment issue, but on the technology side, I think there are a couple of critical strategic decisions that we have to make as a state. I'll share with you a couple of those thoughts. One, on the educational system, we have a very friendly, business-friendly environment. We have a very friendly tax system to businesses. However, we have been historically investing more money on the back end of the educational system rather than the front end. So similar to capital maintenance, if you defer maintenance, it becomes much more expensive than taking care of your ongoing maintenance. So we need to rethink investing upfront in the educational system from pre-K to K through 12 to be sure that the pipeline of talent that we're investing in the STEM field, we're investing in folks who can, who have the interest, the passion, and the commitment to the field. So that's one. Now, post-graduation, if I can make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 working in the space and leave Indiana, then it becomes an issue of competition. We're competing with other states. So what can we offer those folks to stay? There are some barriers. I'll be brief. I'll share a couple of those. I drafted a piece of legislation to incentivize both born and raised Hoosiers who want to stay in the state of Indiana, post-graduation in the STEM field, by either forgiving loans or offering state income tax credits. If they stay in the state for a certain period of time, they work in the field, they purchase a home, they settle in the state so that the return on investment, they would spend more over a period of time on sales taxes and property tax and income tax in Indiana if we can keep them than losing them. The second idea was, some of these ideas might sound crazy to some of you, so forgive me for that, but we charge way too much for out-of-state folks coming here. And I'm not talking about international students specifically, I'm talking about just out-of-state tuition. So what if we become a leading state in the nation of attracting folks from outside of the state, if we come up with an incentive or mechanism to offset the difference between in-state versus out-of-state tuition, again, if you stay in the state, if you work in the state, and if you live in the state. We have not explored these ideas as a state. Several of us, several individuals introduced legislation or drafted legislation on this, and I intend to file that legislation next session. But as far as partnership with the businesses, I think there are many great opportunities that are also part of the 2022 legislative agenda, including investing in the certified tech parks, for example, to be able to support manufacturing and support technological advancements and investments. So to conclude, I think, without going into too much details, I think Indiana is literally at a crossroads. We are at a point in time and in history of either we make bold strategic investments of realigning our tools in the educational system, in the workforce system, and the people and the culture system. Otherwise, every strategy that we use might seem to be, I wouldn't call it haphazard, but it will be misaligned with the future of Indiana. And the opposite of growth is decline. So if we're not investing, then we are consciously making a decision to make Indiana fall behind the nation. And I won't accept that. I know my colleagues won't accept that, and we'll be working tirelessly to address these issues.
Thank you. One of the things you said reminded me, I want to mention, we have Pat East here from the Mill in Bloomington. There was a program, and I can't remember who sponsored this bill last session, but to target remote workers. So the state of Oklahoma did a program, and then the city of Bloomington did a program to incentivize folks to move here and work here, and then they get either a cash incentive or a tax credit after such a period of time. Obviously, we have a lot of people who work remotely now, and a lot of reasons that you can live wherever you want to live. Somebody tried to get that going in a past session, and I think the appetite wasn't there yet, and maybe it was a little too new of an idea. But I just want to plant that seed. If anybody wants to run with it, it's something I think that we could rally around, and Pat and others could talk to you about some of the success that they've had in that space too. I think we have maybe a couple of minutes if we have any audience questions for any of these legislators.
So I know we've talked many times, so I appreciate that answer. I would tell you, so this coming session, we're working on robotics, automation, and of course, we have to raise our CTE funding. I mean, as you know, we have lots of, these kids are unbelievable. I mean, they come to my high school, they come to our career centers, they come to work for me all summer. 108 interns this summer. Unbelievable young, you don't hear that. Truth is, they're awesome. So if we can invest in this automation, robot, because we're not going to solve the people problem. It's a human being problem. We don't have enough. So if we can invest in automation, robotics, and increase our CTE funding, you look at that $600 has been there forever. My bill that'll be filed will be $820. We're raising the top two levels for career and technical education. That'll be a stretch getting it passed. I have no argument there, but I can tell I agree with you. We have all kinds of talent. We just have to get them in teams, get them in competitions, right? We all know that this robotics competition across the state of Indiana, we got 125 teams roughly. Michigan has 400, right? We start to fund that automation robotic stuff, man, we'll kill it. And so I'll appreciate your testimony when I get that bill in Ways and Means.
I'll get the penalty flag for piling on. Kokomo is one of the 10 largest basketball gyms, and we're basketball state. We had a robotics competition there a couple of years ago, and there were literally more students, spectators, and fans in our basketball arena watching robotics competition than we draw at a sectional or regional basketball game. Unbelievable. To walk into that gymnasium and the excitement and the cheers, and they got pep band. It's unbelievable. And that kind of environment is good in the K-12 setting. So it's real, it's catching on, and I'm going to go on that bill with Chuck.
Well, see, I think we're sparking something here, so that's good. I think that's all the time we have for the panel. There are lots of other things we could talk about, but I appreciate you all coming here and talking about some of the legislation that you've worked on and just helping to demonstrate that we have plenty of elected officials who care about what we're trying to do and want to learn more and who actually get it and are out there doing it. So hopefully we can continue to build these relationships and get more laws passed that will help us grow this state. Thank you.